Have you ever heard of a mission so audacious, so brilliantly executed, that it brought an entire military base to its knees without a single shot being fired? This isn't a Hollywood movie plot. This is the incredible, true story of Operation WWII, one of the most daring special operations of World War II. Picture this. It's September 1943. War in the Pacific is raging. Singapore, once the impenetrable fortress of the British Empire, has fallen and is now the most important Japanese naval base in Southeast Asia. From its heavily guarded harbor, the Imperial Japanese Army ships out vital resources like rubber, tin, and oil, fueling their war machine. Allied High Command knows that disrupting this supply line is crucial, but how? A conventional attack would be suicidal. The harbor is a fortress, bristling with anti-aircraft guns patrolled by warships and protected by underwater nets. Any direct assault would result in catastrophic losses. The Allies needed a different approach. Something unconventional. Something completely insane. Enter a man named Ivan Lyon, a lieutenant colonel in the British Army. Lyon was a maverick, a man who thought outside the box. Before the war, he had spent years sailing the waters around Singapore. He knew the tides, the currents, and the hidden channels like the back of his hand. As he watched Singapore fall, an audacious idea began to form in his mind. What if, instead of a massive naval fleet, a small, almost invisible team could slip through the Japanese defenses? What if they could use stealth and surprise to strike at the very heart of the enemy's power? His superiors were skeptical. The plan was outrageously risky, but with few other options, they gave him the green light. Thus, Operation WWII was born. Lyon's plan was as simple as it was brilliant. He would lead a small team of commandos, disguised as local fishermen, right into Singapore harbor. Their vessel wouldn't be a state-of-the-art submarine or a powerful warship. It would be an old, dilapidated Japanese fishing boat named the Kofuku Maru. The Kofuku Maru was a wreck, captured in Indonesian waters. It was slow, leaky, and reeked of fish, but that was its genius. It was the perfect camouflage. Who would look twice at a beat-up fishing boat puttering along the coast? To complete the disguise, the commandos would stain their skin brown, wear local attire, and learn to move and act like Malay fishermen. They couldn't even speak to each other in English during the journey. The slightest mistake would mean discovery and certain death. The team assembled for this suicide mission was a motley crew of 14 men, a mix of British and Australian soldiers. They called themselves Z Special Unit. These weren't just soldiers. They were adventurers, sailors, and daredevils, handpicked by Lyon for their courage, resourcefulness, and ability to operate under extreme pressure. They trained for months in the remote wilderness of Australia, practicing paddling collapsible canoes, attaching limpet mines, and living off the land. On September 2nd, 1943, the Kofuku Maru, now renamed the MV Kite in honor of a small but deadly snake, slipped out of Exmouth Gulf in Western Australia. On board were 14 men and a cargo of explosives, all disguised under a pile of rotting fish. Their journey was a treacherous 2,500-mile odyssey. Through enemy-controlled waters, they faced typhoons, engine failures, and the constant, nerve-wracking threat of being stopped and inspected by a Japanese patrol boat. At one point, a Japanese warship sailed so close they could see the sailors on its deck. The commandos held their breath, their hands gripping hidden weapons, ready for a final, desperate fight. But the warship, seeing nothing more than a harmless fishing boat, sailed on by. After nearly 3 weeks at sea, they reached the Rio Archipelago, a cluster of small islands just south of Singapore. Here, the main team established a hidden base. The final assault would be carried out by a smaller group of 6 men, led by Lyon himself. Under the cover of darkness, they left the Kite and set off in their 3 collapsible canoes, known as Sleeping Beauties. They had to paddle for over 30 miles, through a maze of islands, and into the heavily patrolled waters of Singapore harbor. For several nights, they hid on deserted islands during the day, observing the harbor traffic, meticulously planning their targets. They were exhausted, bitten by insects and running on pure adrenaline. Finally, on the night of September 26th, The time came to strike. The 6 men paddled their canoes into the heart of the lion's den. The water was lit by searchlights sweeping back and forth. Patrol boats crisscrossed the harbor. The commandos paddled silently, their bodies low in the water, their hearts pounding. They looked like ghosts gliding through the darkness. Once inside the main anchorage, T-split up each canoe team heading for their designated targets. Moving from ship to ship, they worked quickly and quietly, attaching their limpet mines to the hulls of the Japanese merchant vessels. These were powerful magnetic bombs with timed detonators. The men had to attach them below the waterline, fumbling in the pitch-black water, knowing that a single clumsy move, a single metallic clank, could alert the guards. After planting all their mines, they slipped back out of the harbor as silently as they had entered. They paddled back to their rendezvous point, their bodies aching, their nerves frayed, and waited. The next morning, the harbor was rocked by a series of massive explosions. One after another, the mines detonated, tearing huge holes in the hulls of the ships. 7 Japanese vessels, totaling nearly 40,000 tons, were either sunk or severely damaged. Panic and confusion erupted in the supposedly secure harbor. The Japanese had no idea what had happened. They believed it was sabotage carried out by local resistance fighters, or even an air raid they had somehow missed. They never suspected that a handful of Allied commandos had sailed right under their noses. The mission was a stunning success, but the team's ordeal was far from over. They still had to make the long, dangerous journey back to Australia. They reunited with the Crite and began the perilous return trip. After 48 days of unimaginable tension and hardship, the battered old fishing boat, the MV Crite, sailed back into Exmouth Gulf. They had done the impossible. They had struck a devastating blow against the enemy without suffering a single casualty and without firing a single shot. The psychological impact of Operation Jaywick was immense. It shattered the myth of Japanese invincibility and proved that even their most fortified strongholds were vulnerable. It was a massive morale boost for the Allies, and a testament to the power of ingenuity, courage, and unconventional thinking. The story of Ivan Lyon and his team is one of the greatest tales of Special Forces operations in history. Sadly, Lyon and most of his team would not survive the war. They attempted a similar, more ambitious raid the following year, known as Operation Ramau, but were discovered and killed. Today, the MV Crite, that rusty old fishing boat, is preserved as a museum ship in Sydney, a floating memorial to the 14 brave men who undertook one of the most audacious missions of World War II. Their story serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't a bomb or a bullet, but a brilliant idea and the sheer audacity to see it through. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as incredible as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing tales from history. See you in the next one.